Like all good stories, the history of Pride has no beginning and knows no end. There were and will always be countless places, events, ideas, and most important of all, particular people gathering to celebrate the many differences that make liberation inevitable. What follows then is just one part of the endless story of queer joy and gay rage, trans defiance and lesbian strength, bi visibility and two-spirit resplendence. In other words, just one part of a collective history of pride. So by June 1969, when trans and gay street kids led the Nights of Rage, now known as the Stonewall Riots, a gay movement had been building for nearly a century. In the early 1900s, for example, the work of Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld inspired a Bavarian immigrant to Chicago, Henry Gerber, to organize what many consider the first official gay organization in the US. Though Gerber's group lasted only months, word of its existence reached a young radical in Los Angeles, Harry Hay, planting the seed for what decades later emerged as the Mattachine Foundation, co-founded by Hay and others in 1950. In turn, the Mattachine ushered in the mid-century homophile era, during which gay activists staged some of the earliest known pickets specifically for homosexuals. These official examples barely scratch the surface, however. For every time someone dared violate the strictly policed boundaries of sexuality, sex, gender, and/or race in the US, a movement gained strength. Far from invisible, queer communities coalesced around those who transcended and contravened the constructs on which whiteness and cis heteropatriarchy rely. In other words, Stonewall was not the beginning of the quote gay movement, though it did prove to be a catalyst for an unprecedented amount of activity, much of which helped shape the coming gay liberation era. Most notably, the story of Stonewall offered activists a chance to publicly commemorate queer defiance and joy. So in November 1969, New Yorker Craig Rodwell proposed changes to the annual Reminder Day, a traditional picket held each July 4th since 1965. In its place, Rodwell envisioned a commemoration of Stonewall held each June, not just in New York, but around the world. He called it Christopher Street Liberation Day. Today, many of us are privileged enough to take annual Pride celebrations for granted. So it's important to emphasize that there was no guarantee that the first Pride events held in June 1970 in Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York would be successful. Thus, on June 28, 1970, just before New York City's first Christopher Street Liberation Day March was scheduled to start at Sheridan Square, there seemed to be little chance of a big turnout. In fact, as the clock hit 2 p.m., only a few hundred people milled about, far less than the thousands that organizers had imagined. But then, they came, drifting out, massing out at the last moment, as if they were watching to see if the others were going to show. And so it began with the lead banner, Christopher Street Liberation Day 1970. Leading queer people from various groups, cities, schools, and walks of life off the sidewalk and into the street. At first, nerves propelled the marchers forward at a near run, but as one participant remembered, we got more militant as we marched along. We owned the streets. We felt liberated and free. Looking out at the crowds along the route, it seemed that each marcher recognized a queer friend stranded on the sidewalks, not quite ready to move to the street. "Come on out or I'll point you out," someone yelled. And they did. Tearing off the masks of anonymity and giving up the relative safety of the sidewalk, hundreds and hundreds of people joined the march. And as the numbers grew, the pace slowed. The spirit lightened, and a sense of collective possibility transformed thousands of individuals into a community, if only for a few hours. By the time the lead banner reached Central Park, the march stretched back 20 blocks, though few would have known just how big the crowd had gotten. Only as marchers came to a rocky rise in the park's sheep meadow did they turn around to witness the enormous queer collective basking in the summer sun. None of them, no one, had ever seen anything like it. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was thousands of queer people celebrating themselves, celebrating each other. It was gay pride. There was no program that day, no speakers, just a large group of gays, dancing, chanting, kissing, and relaxing in Central Park. It was a family reunion, one person wrote, a moment in which thousands of thems connected as one we, not simply tolerating, but welcoming and rejoicing in one another's differences, as complements to that spark which gives meaning to a community and pride to its members. The history of pride is a history of claiming space in order to welcome and rejoice in the infinite spectrum of identities that make up the queer family. Our world, our community, our celebrations of self may never be perfect, but they can always be better. Keep rejoicing, keep connecting, keep demanding something more, and be proud.